We're still in 1908 as far as, we're talking about the runs, endurance runs and whatever that went on around the country. We talked about Harley's run from Catskill to Long Island. I guess everybody wanted to take it and have their own run, a local run. So these guys, fellows from Newburgh, I believe there was 6 to 8 people riding. One fellow was on a Marsh Metz, a 1908, and the other 2 men rode an Indian twin tandem, and the other fellows were on Indian singles. They went from Newburgh to Port Jervis on, on Sunday, October 18th, 2008. So the William Caldwell eventually became a dealer in Newburgh, and M&M was his first actual brand that he sold. The next year he went on to sell Indians and Yales and perhaps and eventually Excelsior. And he did manage to sell one in 1908 to the Newburgh Police Department. So there he is in 1908, William Tuttle on his police bike. So early on, Newburgh had police motorcycles. New York had them a little bit earlier. New York had Indian police bikes in 1905. They found that once there was motor vehicles on the street, in order to catch them, they had to have a motorized vehicle. They had at one time, of course, they had horses, to mount a patrol, and they also had bicycles. Theodore Roosevelt, as the mayor, in the early days had instituted the bicycle for police work, and he was probably instrumental bringing the bicycle in and then later bringing the Indian in as a motorized bicycle. So they tell their story. Leaving Newburgh, they outlined all the roads going to Orange County again, all dirt roads. Coming back, or they did stop at a few places there was no gas. They explained that Middletown had ran dry. There wasn't a lot of places to get the fuel, so I think they ended up, going to a farmer and borrowing some gas. The highlight of their trip, when they got to Port Jervis, they ended up at the Erie Hotel, which is next to the O&W train station. So they had a pretty good meal. They explained how they satisfied the inner man. They had a good lunch, and then they were back on the road again. So the Erie Hotel, my dad and a few of us guys, we redid this for the 100th anniversary, or no, 80th. We did 1988, and of course we did it on modern motorcycles. Of course that year, Erie Hotel had shut down. It's since reopened. We did the 100th anniversary ride in 2008, and it was open at that time. So Erie Hotel is alive and well. They made it back to Newburgh before dark, and they had a good run. But the Marsh Metz, pretty well developed, and it was an East Coast motorcycle, of course, produced in Massachusetts. So got pretty good throttle controls, pretty good linkage setup. Of course, a sprung front fork, sprung seat. It's still, it's 1-speed belt drive. Forward mounted carburetor. Magneto's up out of the, up out of the water and the air. Cast iron cylinder engine block, which was pretty unique for its day. So we go on. So that's 1908. Of course, there was all the European brands, we're not really discussing those. We're talking about the American brands. Here's another one made somewhere in the Chicago area, Meteor. We haven't found any information on this, and it seems like it's the only example. It's fitted here with a Yale engine, but of course it has soft rear suspension, and That's as much information as we has. It has a sprung fork, was fitted with a speedometer. And so anyone that knows anything about a Meteor has a Breeze carburetor. Breeze actually is still in business. Breeze ended up, they made a motorcycle as well, but Breeze, if we follow them, they ended up making stainless steel products for World War II, industrial piping and aircraft components. Later on, keep going, they're in business today, they're in Pittsburgh, and they make hose clamps, industrial hose clamps. But so Breeze Manufacturing, it's been in business well over 100 years. It's still going strong, although they have no connection, certainly, to the motorcycles at this time. But they were sophisticated enough to build a carburetor, a working carburetor, in, say, 1904 or 5. So.